Well, hello and welcome to Talk Leadership with Cedrick. You know, everybody needs a little TLC. Talk Leadership with Cedrick is where we focus on leadership and personal growth with business leaders, educators, and local thought leaders. Our goal is to introduce our audience to leaders who are making an impact with innovative ideas. You know, our guiding leadership principle is the law of contribution, which says growing yourself enables you to grow others. So you can't give what you don't have. So first you must grow yourself in order to grow others. And we believe that outstanding leaders like yourself will help us to grow others. So tonight we have another dynamic leader with us. Now, you know, every week I like to do a proper introduction of my guests. So let me welcome and introduce Mayor Nick Hunter. Nick Hunter is a lifelong resident of Lake Charles, Louisiana, and a small business owner. Nick Hunter was elected to the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury in 2011 and was in his second term serving as representative for District 5 when he was elected to the office of mayor of the city of Lake Charles. Early in life, Mayor Hunter acquired his work ethic by bussing tables, yes, bussing tables, and washing dishes at his grandparents' restaurant, Harlequin Steaks and Seafood, which they opened in 1956. With his grandmother's blessings, he began running the restaurant full-time at the young age of 17 years old. That's a lot of responsibility for a 17-year-old, folks. Today, he is partner in the Villa Harlequin restaurant. Mayor Hunter graduated from St. Louis Catholic High School in 2002. And in 2007, he received his Bachelor of Arts in History from Acme State University. Mayor Hunter is a proud graduate and supporter of the university, where he has established an endowed scholarship named Dr. Robert Forrest History Scholarship. Since taking office in July 2017, Mayor Hunter has successfully enacted a number of key initiatives, including increasing funding for drainage improvements by 93%. He launched the Partners in Parks initiative in July 2018, securing over $500,000, $500,000 in private donations and grants. These funds have been used to transform several city parks and reinvigorate programming while inspiring various community and civic organizations to partner with the city. The Partners in Parks initiative received the first place Community Achievement Award from the Louisiana Municipal Association in August 2019. In July of 2019, Mayor Hunter proposed and received unanimous city council approval for a one-time $5 million supplemental infrastructure package aimed at expediting much-needed street, sidewalk, and transportation projects citywide. This historic amount has allowed the city to begin road and infrastructure improvements that have been needed for many, many years. Making good on his promises to turn dirt on the lakefront, Mayor Hunter announced the Lakefront Development Project Port Wonder, a $20+ million science and nature center and a state-of-the-art children's museum. This historic project was made possible by securing dozens of public and private funding partners. With deep love for the community and a passion to give back to his city, Mayor Hunter has always looked for ways to encourage philanthropy and the entrepreneur spirit in others. Several efforts that he has focused on specifically have been children in need in Southwest Louisiana, efforts to support active military and military veterans, and encouraging animal adoption. Working with United Way and a community foundation, Mayor Hunter has rallied hundreds of thousands of dollars to support efforts such as these during his tenure. Mayor Hunter has been married to his wife, Becky, and an accomplished lawyer in Southwest Louisiana since 2015. They welcomed their firstborn a son named Harrison into the world in August 2017, and their daughter, Colette, in February of 2020. Together, they have 3 rescue dogs, Humphrey, Boris, and Jolene. So, folks, I need you to help me welcome Lake Charles City Mayor Nick Hunter to the show.
Cedrick, thank you. I'm honored. I'm honored to be here. And I'll go ahead and apologize if you hear some scratching or barking in the background. It's one of those rescue dogs. And if you hear some screaming, all is well. It's one of the 2 in the room next door. But I'm honored to be here. Thank you, Cedrick.
Hey, well, thank you for joining us. And I'm looking forward to having a good conversation with you this evening. So let's start off by tell our listeners about your journey to leadership, and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, as you stated in my bio, I started working at an early age, about 12 years old. I started busting tables, washing dishes at my family's restaurant. I hope that child labor laws are not retroactive, but it was a good experience. When I started working, I did not quite understand why my grandmother was having me start at the bottom, and wanted to immediately jump to the top of the ladder. And I didn't want to start at the bottom. But in looking back now, that was absolutely the best thing that she could have done for me. And my grandmother, Mrs. Hunter, was really probably the biggest influence on my life growing up. She never made me want for anything, but she made me work for everything, if that makes sense. I mean, I never wanted for anything as a kid, but I learned work ethic, and work ethic was instilled in me almost in almost a military fashion when I was young. And I think that evolved into appreciating what it is to work with others, and appreciating what it is to lead others. And I was probably 17 or 16, 17 when I started actually running the restaurant. And it was a lot of trial by error. I mean, when I was first a manager, I expected, just because I was manager, that meant I had leadership. Someone put manager on my business card, so that means I'm a leader automatically. And I learned quickly it was not that way. And today, as we look into evolving to become a mayor, I think that the entire journey, the culmination of my life experiences, hopefully have brought me to a point where I can consider myself somewhat of a leader, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I think that God has a interesting plan for us. We don't always realize when we're in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I truly do feel like there were some challenges and some opportunities and even a couple failures placed in my life that led me to where I am today. And so I didn't know if I was officially a leader, but since I'm on your show talking about leadership, I think you've given me that official title and mantle. So it's official. Thank you, Cedrick.
Well, I try to, help people get what they need.
Thank you.
Well, we believe that leadership is influence, nothing more. And we all influence people one way or the other. The hope is that we influence them in a more positive way than a negative way, right?
Absolutely.
So why? So you're in business, running your own business, in charge there. Why become mayor of the city?
Great question. And this goes back to a moment ago when I said that I think God has a bit of a plan for us, and sometimes we're a little resistant, or sometimes we don't exactly allow it to reveal itself on our own time, rather on his time. So when I was 20 years old, I knew that I was going to be in the restaurant business forever, that I was going to be the next Outback. I was going to have Harlequin steakhouses across the country. I was going to be a chain restaurant and work in the restaurant business forever. I was working 70, 80-hour weeks, which was very common and very Yeah, very standard. There was nothing that I ever complained about or thought there was anything odd about that. Uh, didn't quite know if kids or a marriage was going to be in my immediate future because I was so focused on work. And quite frankly, when I was that age, I was focused on financial wealth. To me, my definition of success when I was 20 was financial wealth and tangible objects. I remember I went out and bought a Lincoln Navigator when I was 20 years old, had an $800 a month car note, and was stupid. And looking back now, just realized, God, that car note could have been going into an IRA every month. I digress. But in any case, I would say somewhere along in my mid 20s, I started to get very interested in public service and how I could really give back to my community. Enrolled at McNeese and graduated, I think, when I was about 22 or 23 with a degree in history. And it was probably some of those history classes. In fact, it was definitely some of those history classes where there was first the seed planted of political life and what politics could do to contribute to society and specifically your own community. So mid 20s, started to get involved in a lot of nonprofits, started to raise a lot of money from a lot of nonprofits, and chemically in my brain, there was this high that I was getting and this fulfillment that I was getting spiritually from helping these nonprofits and seeing them succeed and seeing them reach benchmarks. And all of a sudden, things like that got me more excited than financial wealth on a personal level. And so I made a pretty clear decision at about 26 or 27 where I said, you know what, I'm going to put those ideas about franchises across the country on hold for a moment. And I want to run for office because I felt like that would be a way that I could even further my contributions to Lake Charles. So the police jury was my first toe into the water. Glad I started there. It was a great experience, a lot of wisdom. And when Mayor Randy Roach, who had been mayor for 17 years, think about this. I replaced Mayor Roach, who was in office for 17 years. When he was elected in 2000, I was a sophomore in high school.
Oh,
so the current mayor was a sophomore in high school when the previous mayor was first elected mayor. When he decided he wanted to retire, that job really just kind of just brightened my thoughts and excited my my thoughts about what could be for Lake Charles and what I could contribute to Lake Charles with that job. And so successfully ran for mayor. And today actually made some changes with the ownership of my business, the restaurant, to where I was able to take on a managing partner. And if you would have told me even 7 or 8 years ago that I would not be working 70, 80 hours a week in a kitchen or in a restaurant, I would have said, no, this is who I am. This restaurant is how I define myself. But today, with a family, with kids, with a wife, as mayor, I define myself very differently today than I would have even 7 or 8 years ago. So that's the journey, and it's been a really fulfilling journey so far. I've been very blessed in my life.
well, that is awesome, and I know that anytime you get involved from a civic standpoint, it's fulfilling, right? However, I know being mayor of the city has to be challenging. There are some things that you love about it, and I'm sure there's some things that you don't like about it. So help me understand being mayor. What do you love about it? And if you had a magic wand and you didn't need to get city or council approval and you could just say, I'm going to change this, what would you change?
Oh man. So let me answer that question this way. Every day I show up to work, I'm excited to be there. And I'm filled with optimism, and I'm filled with excitement about our city and our community and our future. And I love being mayor. There are times where you are dealing with issues that are very heated and polarizing, and there are certainly times where I have had to remind myself that I asked for this job, and that I walked streets and knocked on doors begging people for this job. So there have been some moments where I've had to do that. But if I could wave a wand and change some things, it really wouldn't be specific to Lake Charles. It would be probably related more to just where we are right now as a country and where we are right now with human interaction and socialization. Um, Social media, it has done wonderful things, and social media has also done some terrible things.
Sure.
20 years ago, if you wanted to dress someone up and down and call them every name in the book, and if you wanted to be mean to them and degrade them, you would have had to actually go to some effort. You would have had to write a letter, put it in an envelope, put a stamp on it, call them on the phone, meet them out in public somewhere, face to face.
Mhm.
Today, some drunk person at midnight on a whim could decide that they want to do that while they're sitting in their lazy boy in their boxers and decide to be very negative and nasty on social media. And that part of it bothers me. I've probably gotten a little bit more used to it over the last couple years. And this last year, really this last 6, 7 months, there have been some really heated issues that we have had to deal with that I have taken some pretty public stances on that are not popular in every circle, and that's okay. That's what part of being mayor is, or part of what being a leader is.
Sure.
So I guess if there was one thing I would change today, it would be people's willingness to spew vitriol so quickly. And I know that's not everyone in society. I try to remind myself and others that I still believe in Lake Charles and other places around this country, the vast majority of people are really good, people that want to see good for everybody and would not spit on their neighbor.
Right.
Unfortunately, we see highlighted via some of these social media outlets some people that are the opposite, and that to me is disappointing, and it's saddening at times.
Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you're right. There is going to be those good times, and there are going to be those bad times. But we know that from a leadership perspective, everything worthwhile is uphill. And you mentioned that, hey, there have been some things that have been heated, challenging, and all of that, and we couldn't have this conversation like we talked about without talking about the South Defender statue, right? And I know you came out with a statement on that, and I know there are people that are watching and they want to hear from you on this. And so I'm going to give you the floor to kind of just help us understand this, your stance on this.
Thanks, Cedric. So when you mentioned the South Defender statue, it is a statue honoring the Confederate soldiers, and it's placed in downtown Lake Charles on courthouse property, so public property. And as a police juror, when this issue first came up, I was a little hesitant to come out with some statements. And I think at that time, I consulted with only myself. I only thought about, well, what does this mean to me? I was always someone that had a great respect for the military, and I was someone that had a great respect for history. I have a history degree from McNeese. So when the topic first hit me, I think my knee-jerk reaction was to only think about Nick Hunter's emotions and what did I think about it. Since I've become mayor and really had the opportunity to see so many different viewpoints and hear so many different life experiences within Lake Charles and the South as a whole, I have really changed my mind about what I feel about what that statue means to our city and to so many people within our city. And that issue is an example of why we need civil discourse so badly in this country right now, why we need to reach across the table, reach across the aisle, and sit down with people who don't think like us and ask them, what do they think about things? How does this make you feel? And once I did that, I actually picked up the phone and called probably 6 of my African American friends who are business people. One guy he was in my wedding party, and he and I text probably more than anyone else in my life, other than my wife and maybe my CPA. But we were just kind of texting back and forth, and just visited with some other people and realized the pain and the hurt that statue caused for so many people. And in the year 2020, I just don't think that that's what we want on a courthouse lawn in a progressive city. And I was watching a few months ago, I was watching a documentary, and there was a city councilman from East Baton Rouge, who was a city councilman in the 60s. And he was talking about, at the time, he was a segregationist, and everyone on the city council at that time basically was a segregationist, and how the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court, kept overturning these Jim Crow segregationist laws and policies and local ordinances and state statutes. And they kept coming back. They kept trying to be creative and finding new ways to get around the Supreme Court's decisions and rulings. And he said we were so scared to think any way other than this is the way it's always been. And he was on this documentary speaking 30, 40 years later. And he said, at this point in my life, I realized I was wrong. And I feel terrible about that. And I want to apologize to everybody that I was wrong. And I just thought about that statue and the idea of, at this stage in my life and at this year that we're in, 2020, which we're in the 21st century, how I could publicly stand up and try to say that that statue doesn't offend people and that statue is okay to have in Lake Charles. And there was nothing about it that felt right. So I want to be on the right side of history. I prayed a long time about it. My Christian faith played a big role in it, and my humanitarian nature, which I try to believe that I have, played a role in it. My appreciation of history and my love for the present and the hope for the future played a role in it. And so several weeks ago, I sat down and put pen to paper and came up with a statement where I stated that the statue should be removed off of the courthouse lawn. And that was absolutely one of those times where I knew that I would ignite some pretty heated emotions on both sides. And it did. And it was a tough couple days. I won't lie. There was a lot of emails and some calls that showed me a lot of people's true colors, and that's okay. That's okay. But it felt like 100 pounds had been lifted off of my shoulders. When I made the statement, I felt like a load of bricks had been lifted off my shoulders. And today, with everything that's going on and seeing where our country is and seeing what could be, I believe even more today versus when I released the statement that it's the right thing to do.
Well, that is awesome, and I'm glad you had that transformation. We all go through moments of transformation in our lives where something we thought one way and something happens and we change our mind and change our opinion. So that's awesome. So final question around this. So what are the options to have it moved? Can it be moved? Is it something that is in your power, or is it somebody else's power to make that happen?
The power lays with the Cowichan Parish Police Jury. And, there have been several locations tossed around since some of those conversations have been with boards in more of a private setting. I would rather not publicly say
Sure.
what the options are, but in my opinion, it needs to be moved with some thoughtfulness. It needs to be moved and placed somewhere where it can be viewed in context, in a historical context. And there are options out there.
Okay.
There are multiple options out there. A courthouse lawn is again, in my opinion, not the place for that statue. And there are multiple other locations where it could go that I believe would not be as prominent as a downtown square, courthouse square.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you taking that question on. I know it wasn't a part of the questions I gave you, so thanks for answering that. And hopefully, citizens of Lake Charles will hear this and see it, and then they want to have conversation more with the police jury. Then let's do that. So I'm going to move on because my show is not a political show. Just so that everybody out there know that I'm not asking Nick questions. He's said I can ask him anything I want to ask him. This show is a leadership development show, and that's the conversation we're going to have. So leaders come in all different types of packages and with different strengths. What strengths do you think, do you feel that are important for a successful leader to have?
Well, I mentioned it a moment ago, but I think gleaning the opinions from a diverse cross section of the community, or a diverse cross section of your team, and making sure you have a diverse team. That's another really important part. If I was deciding the way I felt or trying to come up with my position on something, if I only have members of my team who have the same background as Nick and who think the same way as Nick, that's not going to give me the kind of true opinion that you need. I mean, you should try to glean the ideas from a diverse cross section. So I think having a diverse team is important. Asking for their opinion, inviting them to disagree with you, and I say that to my inner circle a lot. I tell them, guys, you are allowed to disagree with me.
Well, you have Kimberly on there. I know that Kimberly always has an opinion.
Kimberly does have an opinion, but she and I are great team. So yeah, it's okay for a member of your team to disagree with you. In fact, if they do, I encourage them to do so. And just trying to operate with professionalism is something that I think is a lost art these days. Mm-hmm. I do not believe in fits of rage or public displays of childish behavior. I think that a leader should be someone that their team look to in his performance in the public, or the way he conducts himself on social media, on interviews, on conversations like this, and be able to say, yeah, I have some respect for that guy. He's talking in a fashion that I can respect. So those are a few things that I think are important with leadership. But I would also say, especially in this day and age, if you want to be in politics, a political leader of sorts, you have got to have some thick skin, and you've got to be willing to put yourself out there and be willing to have some stones thrown at you, and realize that there's going to be some rough waters. And I think there's a great saying that calm waters never made a skilled sailor. And certainly plenty of rough waters out there right now for anyone in leadership. So hopefully I'm at the very least, a skilled sailor by the end of this journey.
Sure, absolutely. Well, you're definitely right about that. And I like that you said diversity in mindset, diversity in skill set, diversity in team. And we like to say in the leadership development world, have people around you that believe what you believe, but they think different thoughts. So,
Absolutely. I think you said that. And Kimberly and I often say this. I think everyone on my team has the same goal, the same mission, but it's how you get there that sometimes is different, or the tools to get there, or the vehicle to get there that's different. So absolutely, especially with a city as diverse as Lake Charles, you need a diverse team. And for those people that have businesses that are dealing with diverse clients, you don't want your entire leadership team to only focus on one portion of your patrons. You want a diverse leadership team that could reach out to multiple groups of your patrons.
Sure, absolutely. So if people are thinking about Lake Charles, they've never been to Lake Charles before, they don't know anything about Lake Charles, what's two or three things about Lake Charles that would make them want to come, and visit Lake Charles?
Well, our lakefront, we have a beautiful lakefront, and it's about to get even more beautiful with a project that you mentioned a moment ago, Port Wonder. In a couple years, I'm going to invite you and I to have a follow-up conversation. And perhaps if you can't be there in person, I'll be out at Port Wonder at the lakefront, streaming in and showing you the project that is really going to transform the gateway to Lake Charles, the entrance to Lake Charles on I-10 to so many people. So our lakefront is beautiful. We have really good people here in Lake Charles, and I apologize if that sounds cliche, but the population here cares about their neighbors, and it has been proven on so many occasions. But when you go through certain natural disasters, a hurricane is something that always seems to come to mind. We got through Hurricane Rita and several other hurricanes. You see people lay down themselves for their neighbors. And I don't know of any nonprofit or really worthy cause that was launched in Lake Charles where the average person on the street, the business community, the philanthropic interests didn't come together and see that cause was met. And it's really beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. And so those are a couple things that I really believe separates Lake Charles from some other locations. I've been other places, and quite frankly, I'm not going to call them out, but I haven't seen that. I haven't always seen people be willing to lay themselves, down for their neighbor if they needed to.
Sure, absolutely. Well, that's awesome. Well, good leaders ask great questions in order to inspire and motivate their team to go new places. It's about asking those good questions. So what are some good questions that you've asked that helps your team stay inspired and motivated and spark that creativity in their thought process?
Well, we mentioned diversity a moment ago, and before we come out with a new initiative or a new idea, I always ask my team, what would your neighbors think about this? What would your friends, what would your family think about this? I have asked some of my team to run some things by their spouses or their colleagues in other areas to say, hey, can you confidentially ask them what do they think about this? So that's something that I think is important. I think it's just always important to ask sometimes what's the worst thing that could happen? What's the best thing that could happen, and what's the worst thing that could happen? And we try to not let that lead us, because we do know that the worst thing is certainly not always what's going to happen. But I think it's important to ask your team, okay, if things go wrong, what is the worst thing that could happen? And let's think about that before we launch an initiative.
Sure. Okay. All right. So what are things that are driving Now I'm from Lake Charles and grew up there and like it. And if I could ever get my wife to agree to move back, then we probably would do that. But that's probably never going to happen. But so, what are the things that's driving the economy in Lake Charles that would inspire or motivate someone to move to the city?
So Lake Charles, over recent history, has done a much better job of diversifying our economy. We are no longer tied to the price of one commodity. There was a time in Lake Charles's history where we experienced almost every 10 or 15 years kind of a boom and bust scenario with the price of oil. But today, with Chenal International Airport, with the Port of Lake Charles that has diversified its holdings incredibly, with the gaming industry, with petrochemical, which is still a big provider of jobs here, but also the LNG industry and the LNG export industry specifically, which I believe is somewhat tied to the price of oil, of course, but it does at times act as its own entity, and you see some of those LNG contracts go out 10 or 15 years. So, for instance, even right now, amongst this turmoil, there are some LNG export facilities in south of Lake Charles, which are hustling and bustling and carrying on with business because they have contracts that they've gone out 5 or 10 years on. But we are, without a doubt, the LNG export epicenter of the United States, if not getting close to the LNG export epicenter of the world. So we have multiple LNG export facilities and several that are on the books, hopefully that will attain FID within coming years. But when you look at what's going on in Lake Charles versus Louisiana and other parts of the country, we are very blessed right now. We have a lot going on that's good for us right now.
Well, that is awesome. So I have a question from Kevin Turner on Facebook. He says, how does Lake Charles empower returning citizens to be productive in their community?
Well, that's a great question. And I love when someone moves away from Lake Charles and experiences what Atlanta, Austin, Charleston, Orlando has to offer and how they do things. And then that person comes back to Lake Charles to bring their experiences back to our city. So there's so many opportunities for boards and nonprofits and governmental boards that someone could be on if they wanted to participate. But we have recently enacted multiple incentives for businesses within certain corridors of Lake Charles, specifically the I-10 corridor and Enterprise Boulevard. And those are not for multi-billion-dollar corporations. In fact, while I can't be specific, we're about to bring to the council an incentive package for probably a $400,000, $500,000 project on Enterprise Boulevard that is a local that's starting a business. So there's a lot of opportunities for people that have moved elsewhere. If you want to come back and make your mark here in Lake Charles, that could be starting a business, and there's multiple incentives available for that. It could be getting on a city board, could be getting on a nonprofit board. And there's just a lot of really progressive and exciting activity going on right now. And Lake Charles is still the size of a city where one person can really make a difference in Lake Charles. And I don't mean that one person can't make a difference in Houston or New York City, but one person in Lake Charles could meet with the mayor and within a day or so be able to get on the phone with pretty much who they need to get on the phone with and talk to who they need to talk with to at least have a road in front of them for their vision or what they want to see happen. Can't always guarantee that they'll get to the finish line,
Sure.
but if someone comes into my office and they have a vision or they want to do something, 99 times out of 100, I can point them in the right direction of how they can make that happen.
Well, that is awesome. Growth in the city is always good, but also growth in mindset in the people that run the city and people that work in the city, right? And we say that growth has to be intentional. So what things do you do for personal and professional growth?
Wow, I read a lot. I read a lot of periodicals related to government. My wife thinks I'm such a nerd, and I love her to death. My best friend, my biggest cheerleader. But she'll come home, and I'm on YouTube watching what other cities are doing. I will watch economic development videos or city council meetings from other cities to see what they're doing. Um,
Yeah, Nick, I'm gonna let you finish, but yeah, that's pretty nerdy.
and you get great ideas. I think
Yeah,
some of our best ideas are always a little kernel stolen from somewhere else.
sure,
So that's what I try to do. I try to see what other people are doing and realize that there's a lot of I guess there's lots of ways to skin a cat, and
hmm
just because we've been doing something at City Hall the same way for 15 years doesn't mean it's the only way it can be done,
sure.
and doesn't necessarily mean that it's the best way in the year 2020 that it can be done.
Sure, absolutely. Well, 100% agree with that. So, people want to know also, I can have the suit and the tie on and all of that stuff, but what do you do to just like relax?
Oh man, to relax. Pre-COVID or post-COVID?
Well, probably free.
Pre, it would be going out on a date night with my wife to my restaurant and sitting down and having a New York strip medium rare, a baked potato fully loaded, iceberg wedge salad with blue cheese and a glass of red wine, and just enjoying the atmosphere and enjoying my wife, because she's not only my wife, she's my best friend, and we have great conversations. Um, but I really do like to read. I have a book collection, and I have a lot of history books, and so I try to just relax by finding things that interest me and indulging myself in some of those things. But it's nothing too crazy. I don't hunt. I don't. Um, yeah, so I love my family. Being a
Mhm.
dad is the best job in the world, by the way.
I
Uh,
agree.
Found that out quickly. And that was something I evolved to. When I got married, I was worried because I was a bachelor until I was 33 or 30, no, 31, 31. And I was worried when I got married that I would not enjoy married life as much as I enjoyed being a bachelor. Well, I enjoy being married. Then when I had kids, honestly, I was worried, am I gonna love these kids, enjoy these kids as much as I enjoy my social time with my wife on a Friday or Saturday night? And without a doubt, hands down, being a dad is the most fun thing in the world. And so on a Friday night, Nick Hunter right now, if I'm in bed by 9:30 after playing for a few hours with my kids, I've had a really good day.
All right. Well, I agree with you 100%. I'm sure the dads that are out there would agree with you as well that being a dad is a wonderful thing. It's a great blessing. So, what advice would you give to emerging leaders trying to find their way and trying to find leadership opportunities? What things can they do to fill up their professional toolbox?
Go talk with people that have done what you want to do and go listen to them. Go have lunch with them. When I wanted to run for mayor, I made a point at a certain time during the campaign and this was not only about votes, by the way, to have lunch with a different person 5 days a week and really listen to them and ask questions. Listen more than you talk when you sit down for those lunches, by the way. Listen more than you talk. Um, there's a lot of people out there that are willing to share their life experiences and how they achieve success with you. And I would not be where I am today if it weren't for people like my grandmother or several local businessmen in Lake Charles who kind of ushered me into my first venture as a business owner. Literally took me to the bank at 20 years old and co-signed a note with me and said, "We believe in you. Don't let us down." And I would not be where I am today if it weren't for those guys. I call them my three wise men. They know who they are. So reach out to people that have done what you want to do and ask them questions. How did they get there? But also trust yourself and trust what you believe yourself capable of. The human spirit is capable of amazing things. And these next couple statements I'm going to say, and I'm cautious when I say them because I do not want them to sound arrogant. And I say them not to describe what I have done, but I say them to groups that I'm talking to, especially high school kids, to say what you are capable of. I was 12 years old when I started working. I was 16, 17 when I started running the business. I was 20 years old when I opened my first business. I was 27 when I ran for office. I was 33 when I ran for mayor. Every step along that process, there were people that told me, "You're too young, you're not ready. You're too inexperienced, you're not ready. It's not your time. Wait, someone else has been jockeying to be mayor for so long. It's not your time." And I always listen to people respectfully, but at the end of the day, I trusted what my heart and my soul and my gut told me I was capable of and what I wanted to do for myself. And I encourage people to do that, even if it means failure at times. I encourage people to trust their gut.
I like that. You know, self-belief, self-respect is the most important thing to a person's life. If you don't believe you don't believe in yourself, nobody else will. So it starts right here.
And look, people use the word ego sometimes as a negative thing, and it certainly can be a negative thing the way you portray it. But I think to be in leadership, you have to have a little bit of an ego, because if you have an ego, you believe that in yourself and you believe that you can achieve certain things. So unless you're obnoxious with it, an ego is not always a bad thing. And self, I like that term you used a second ago, self-belief and believing in yourself is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I know you'll be coming up for re-election sometime next year. What's the most important thing that everyone should know about Nick Hunter?
That I'm going to do what's right, even if certain circles it's not popular, even if in uh, certain historically Nick Hunter supportive circles, perhaps it's not the popular thing. I'm going to do what I think is right. And I think sometimes we are lacking that in the politically polarized world we live in. Political parties have put us into boxes, and all of a sudden it's not what the individual believes, it's what the dogma of the party tells that individual that they must believe. And that really bothers me. I do not want a political party in Baton Rouge or Washington, D.C. telling me the way I should believe on something or think about something. So I want people to know that I'm going to give decisions I make a lot of thought and a lot of prayer. But when I make a decision, I'm going to do it because I believe it's right, not because I believe it is politically correct or the way the wind's blowing today.
Sure, absolutely. So, we've all had successes. We've had those great days, right? When you won the election for mayor, I know you felt like, wow, this is a great day. I'm excited about it. And I was successful in the campaign. But on the opposite side, we've also all failed at something at one time or another. So give us a time where you failed at something, and what was the lessons you learned from it?
Well, I tell you, in business, anytime that I have lost money in an investment, it has always been because I was trying to push something too fast. I think when you make investments in business, they typically should be thought out, and you should be patient with your money, especially at a young age. I think when I was younger, I wanted things quick and I wanted them now, especially with financial interests. So there were a couple investments I made in my 20s. They were legitimate investments, and I lost money on them, and it was because I wanted to get rich quick. And those are a couple failures that I have. I had I tried to get a master's degree. I wanted to get a master's degree in history at McNeese, and I kept telling myself my senior year, I remember, I can't wait to sign up for the master's program for history at McNeese. And finally, one day, one of my history professors said, "Hey, we don't have a master's program in history here at McNeese." And I just said, "Well, what? I thought every school had a master's degree, and every degree had." So it was Dr. Forrest. He said, "No, the closest one is UL in Lafayette." So I signed up for a master's program at Lafayette. I did about 2 or 3 semesters. I was driving back and forth 2 or 3 times a week, and it absolutely killed me. I was working 70 hours a week and then trying to get a master's degree, and I dropped out of the master's program. And that hurt because I had always told myself, you can do anything. You're invincible. You can work 80 hours a week, and you can also go get a master's in history from UL. This is no problem. And I couldn't do it. And so that was disappointing. So those are a couple failures I've had.
Okay. All right. So, being an entrepreneur is a rough and rocky road. So I'm one of the 4 partners in an organization called Black Entrepreneurs Institute, where we train, we take these entrepreneurs through a boot camp and then on to a continuing program where we help them at every phase of their entrepreneurship. And even though it's called Black Entrepreneurs Institute, we train everybody can be a part of the program. But we know that an entrepreneur's journey is up and down and can be rocky. So what are 2 or 3 pieces of advice you would share with someone that's considering becoming an entrepreneur?
Well, I said it a moment ago, but I think be patient with your investments. Do not believe that you're going to strike gold overnight. That rarely happens. And if you look at the average person that considers themselves financially successful or financially a self-made financially successful person, that typically didn't happen overnight for them. That happened after years of patience and years of methodical investing. So I would suggest that. Also, choose things that you enjoy. I have always been blessed to be involved in businesses or investments that I enjoyed. I loved the restaurant business. I enjoy real estate, and I own real estate. But I would not be a good fishing pole salesman. Make sure that you're in something that you love and something you can connect with, because I think that passion will also reflect upon your potential customers.
Sure, absolutely. Follow your passion is definitely important. So young people out there, millennials and iGeners, I want you to make sure that you understand this and hear what he said. 1, be patient with your investments. It's not going to happen. Well, it could happen overnight, but more than likely it's not going to happen overnight. So you have to be patient and be willing to go through those ups and those peaks and valleys. Then the second thing he said, hey, choose things that you enjoy. Just because your friend enjoyed it, just because your father, your mother, your grandmother, your uncle enjoyed it, doesn't mean that you will. So find something that you like and then go after it with unbridled passion.
And I'll tell you a couple other things. I did not create these, so I'm going to give credit to someone else. But my CPA told me this once. He said, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. So that always stuck in my mind, probably because I love pork chops. But that always stuck in my mind. And the other thing that someone told me recently was because I was always stubborn with investments. If I invested in something, I didn't want to lose money. I would be willing to just be so stubborn. And sometimes there were only a couple occasions where this happened, but throw good money after bad because I was so committed to it. And I was so sure that I could not have made a wrong decision, or Nick Hunter couldn't have invested in something that was going to fail.
Right.
Sometimes you got to throw a little treasure over the ship in
Mm-hmm.
order to take the ship.
Sure.
And that's important for people to realize.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, in the last 5 or 6 minutes we have here, I know the citizens of Lake Charles have been diligent, and some have been more patient than others around this whole COVID-19 issue, and not just in Lake Charles, but here in the city of Houston, all over. It's something that we wish would hurry up and run its course. So, as the leader of in a major city in Louisiana, how are you doing? How's the city doing? And what's next?
Well, in the whole scheme of things, when you look at from when COVID began to where we are today, Lake Charles is doing reasonably well. Recently, we have had a pretty severe uptick, but we have acknowledged that, and we have not tried to deny that exists. So I speak daily with our local medical officials. I text the chief medical officers of our major hospitals daily and ask them how they're doing. And if we need to talk, we do. The governor recently instituted a statewide mask mandate. And I know that was a really tough call, but I understand why he did it. So it's difficult right now because the forces that are above my head have made things very divisive regarding COVID-19. But I believe we're making progress in getting middle of the road, level-headed people to understand the seriousness of the situation. And I'll give you a couple quick examples. Over the last couple weeks, it kind of dawned on us locally that maybe people aren't connecting with elected officials when they're talking about COVID-19 and the situation in the hospitals. So like we're having today, I started to have recorded conversations with doctors, with nurses who could tell the public what's going on. And I have seen some people, and I could say their names, that were adamantly opposed to any preventative measures and were saying that this was over dramatized, maybe not using the word hoax, but saying that the numbers were inflated. This is not as real as you think it is. All of a sudden they hear a couple doctors that they've known for 20 or 30 years. They see a joint statement from 120 local doctors that we received, a joint statement from 120 local doctors saying this is real. They saw an interview with 2 ICU nurses who were talking about what they see every day. And I think that we're starting to get more people than not to understand that it's serious. And changing our behavior is something that we can use to fight this. It's not what I try to tell people is this is not something we're going to have to do forever. But right now, if we want to keep our economy open in some semblance, there are certain preventative measures that we have to take, and masks is one of those things. And that has been a very divisive topic. But like a Confederate statue, this is one of those times where I don't believe officials should be wishy-washy about this. I think you either trust the vast majority of experts in medicine and science, or you don't. And right now, the vast majority of experts in medicine and science, and for Lake Charles, locals are asking us to wear masks when we go in the public. And so I support that. I do it, and I encourage people to do it. And I think that it will have a positive effect. So we will get through this. We will get through this. Lake Charles is a strong city. Of course, this for the city's finances has been a punch in the gut, but we have traditionally been a conservative city with our fund balances. And so we will get through this in shape, and I believe we're going to come out on the other end as a better community because we had done so much before COVID hit to make sure that we were in a strong position as a city.
Awesome. Awesome. So if someone wanted to follow up with you and get in contact with you, how do they do that?
Well, the Mayor's Action Line is an easy way to get in touch with me if you want a message to get to me. MAL@cityoflc.us or Mayor's Action Line at cityoflc.us. If they wanted to just follow some things that are going on, the city's Facebook page or my Nick Hunter, Mayor of Lake Charles Facebook page is an option for them. So that's probably the best way someone could either keep up with what's going on or reach out and let me know what they think.
Awesome. So one last question for you. Well, first of all, thank you very much for being willing to come on the show. I definitely enjoyed it. Hopefully you enjoyed it as well. Any final thoughts for the citizens of Lake Charles?
Oh, to the citizens of Lake Charles. Well, first of all, thank you for allowing me to serve. I love this job, and it's the citizens that put me here. And it's really not my office. It's not my desk. It's the people's office and the people's desk. So I just want to tell them thank you. Thank you for giving me, other than being a dad and a husband, the greatest honor in my life to be mayor, and to know that, as I said a moment ago, I'm not gonna stick my head in the sand and ignore issues when they pop up. I'm gonna try to lead and sometimes be bold with statements or opinions, because to say nothing is not acceptable at this juncture right now. We're going through some issues in this country and some social issues where to say nothing, I believe, is unacceptable, and might not always agree, but hopefully people will know that when I speak, it's coming from the heart, and it's coming from a good place with a lot of thought and a lot of prayer before I make some of those statements. And as we have discussed recently, there's been a few that have been some tough ones, but bite the bullet, and then I asked for this job, and it's part of the job. So.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you very much for coming on. Hey, folks, I hope you enjoyed the conversation tonight. This will replay again later tonight as well. So if some people missed the entire show, you can tune in. But guess what? We're not done. On tomorrow at 5:30 Central Time, Talk Leadership will be back again. And Lake Charles, you want to tune in for two reasons. One, at 5:30 Central Time, we will have judge candidate Bobby Holmes on the show. And then as soon as we're done with that, you're going to join me in our Empowered Living community. And we're going to have Lake Charles' very own Miss Rita Durgan from Mama Rita's Kitchen on our Black Entrepreneurs Institute live show in the Empowered Living on the Empowered Living channel. So join in tomorrow at 5:30 here for Talk Leadership with Cedrick, candidate Bobby Holmes, and then at 6:30 Central Time we will have Miss Rita Durgan from Mama's Rita's Kitchen on our Empowered Living network. So tune in, look forward to it. Again, thank you guys very much. You know that everybody needs a little TLC.